So we have a few interview questions for you, and I'll start first. Have you ever been involved in your community for participatory design, and what kind of design was that?
So in participatory design, I guess the example would be some of the work that I did in Shoal Lake 40, where we basically, rather than just designing and implanting it there, that actually it was a rigorous process with community where we listened to the needs and dreams of what housing is and sort of be and worked in a way that we dreamt with them for them to create housing that suits their needs and lifestyle within the community. And so there is, three or four projects with them. And through the teachings that I've gained with working in community, I've been able to apply in sort of all my practice work and in my research work as well.
Okay. When involved in participatory design, what was the hardest problem you faced? Was it hard to communicate with people?
The hardest problem, or the most interesting problem, it is actually. So, when we go into community right off the bat, there's always sort of an awkwardness to start, I guess. So the example I'll give is with students, right? And so the students are coming to community the first time, and the community, we don't know each other. There's sort of there's a shyness and sort of this awkwardness, and as a facilitator, I'm there running back and forth trying to say bad jokes to get everybody talking. But one of the greatest things that architecture has the power and making has the power is that as soon as the work started, the making of the project started, or the design of the project started, and people started collaborating and working, that through the process relationships were made, and that really facilitating meaningful dialogue and executed successful projects. That the purpose of it was that there is a story now attached to it, which I think everyone can feel a part of. And so that's participatory design is really an excellent model for storying architecture.
Okay. Were resolved during your involvement in participatory design?
Oh, can you repeat that? Just blurped
Yeah.
a bit.
What were some issues that were resolved during your involvement in participatory design?
Some of the issues that were resolved, and what issues were there. Is that the question? And then how
Yeah.
are those issues resolved?
Yeah.
Again, I think I go back to the example I just gave was that. But I think some of the teachings that I received from after kind of years of doing this is actually like before you go into community, before you work with different groups of people, that it's really important to take some time to understand before going into the community. So it's not just arriving. Um, and I assume these questions are based around my work and working with community, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's it's kind of acknowledging, and there's a really good author and a really good book. It's Braiding Sweetgrass, and the author is Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she tells this really nice story, and she talks about that. She has a great quote that the greatest gift that we can give is taking the time to understand, and I think that teaching can be really applied to how we think and make architecture.
Yeah. How important is participatory design in a project?
How, pardon?
How important is participatory design in a project?
How important? I think it's really important because I think that, in community, you hear the stories by the elders and the youth and the community members, and you have an opportunity to take those stories and dream with them and bring them in and make them proud of their homes and houses, and actually provide something that matters. I'm not sure if you have a lot of experience working in typical community settings, but oftentimes the housing is sort of just implanted there, which not much thought. So, for example, it's just basically a square. There's never enough housing, so sometimes you have like 15 people living in a two-bedroom home. It gets damaged really quick, and there's never any thought to what goes beyond the building as well. So basically, it's just a set of stairs, and there's no life dreamt about the community sort of beyond. And so I think when you hear those stories from the community and the youth and community members, that together you can dream into thinking about a life that they really want.
Times have you been involved in participatory design, and when was your first time?
My first time was in 2017, I guess, and that was some with work with Shoal Lake 40. And most recent one is actually ongoing right now, and we're working with Broken Head Ojibwe Nation just north of Winnipeg, and we're helping them with food sovereignty at the moment. So there's two elders there that are working, and they have this dream of providing safe and nutritious food for the community, and kind of regaining traditional ways of growing and harvesting from the land. And so what we're doing is our design studio is working with the community, developing all these programs to help dream into what exactly their vision is. And so really ever since 2017 working with Shoal Lake, I've just been sold on that's the way that we need to practice architecture.
Okay. What was your first thought when asked to participate in participatory design?
Well, I've never been asked to participate in design. I think what happens is that you just do it. So I just had an inclination that, okay, our first one, for example, was a housing competition. And so we're sitting there and we're designing a competition, and it was like, well, we can just dream and project some sort of architecture, but it's not going to respond to the importance of place, and it's not going to take that. So we better go to the community and actually ask what they want. And just through those teachings and keep doing it, that it just became part of the process.
Do you prefer using the participatory design method when working on a project? Why or why not?
Absolutely. And I think it's for all the reasons that I just mentioned. I think that it builds relationships, right? It actually goes that the design process is a super important aspect of the project, and it's actually where the story is being built. And sort of what I've learned is that if you go into an architecture project and the way you value it is not by how it looks or not these objective appearances, but actually if you told a good story or not, then it has really meaning. So through storying, I think, is a really important teachings that you get out of participatory design, and they just happen. They're not projected. You go there with good intentions, and through those good intentions, good stories are made.
What would,
This is hard.
what would you say is the best approach to use when using participatory design in a project?
Having the participants kind of working together on something, um, like I said before, that as soon as you start making and drawing and participating in something together, that really begins to form those relationships. That the reason why participatory design is so important. I think that it's not about the architect anymore going and listening and taking notes and then going back to the office and drawing this concept and bringing it back and saying, this is what we were thinking. It's actually now it's about working and making in-depth knowledge about what the place is. And I refers again to Robin Wall Kimmerer's quote, it's taking the time to understand. And I think that's the most important part of participatory design.
Yeah, I agree. experience, some attributes you would say are needed and beneficial when involving in participatory design?
Sorry, can you repeat just the first part of the question?
Yeah, from your experience, what are some attributes you would say are needed and beneficial when involving in participatory design?
Sometimes architects have big egos. They want what they want. They have a dream and they have a vision for it. It's about removing the ego and coming to place and being open and allowing the process to do the work. And I think that's the most important thing.
Do you enjoy working with a community for participatory design? Why or why not?
Because every time you go there, you learn something new. You hear
Great.
new stories, and it's just really amazing.
Um, what design has been your most memorable project and why was it memorable to you?
Most memorable project would have to be in 2019 doing a little feasting shelter. And I think you might have watched a little bit of that in the class. But anyways, we were working with Shoal Lake 40 and it was like 2 years into the relationship and trust was given. And so we came and they asked to do a small little feasting shelter. And the idea was to include youth and community members and students and the Faculty of Engineering and Architecture to come together and build a feasting shelter. And so basically what we did was we sort of designed it together. We visited the community, and there was so many failures and there were so many successes that it became this really amazing teaching thing for me. And so from all those lessons, you can take on to moving to the new way, working with community. And I think, some of those lessons were, even though the intention to come together and working on a project, prefabbing it in Winnipeg and sort of allowing the community to take care of the foundation still separated the process. It also taught me that, community consultation is not just a check mark, that it's actually very in-depth work that takes time and a sense of openness. I think that was really important. And also, the biggest thing that it revealed was that the idea of like the story you make together actually is the value of the architecture, because the architecture is the most simplest thing that you've ever seen. It's basically just a little roof and a shelter, but what happened to make that thing was all was the special part. It was, celebrating the first time we put the timber bent up, and just the little moments. And I think that's where, and even the community to this day, they still go there, and the youth that worked on it are still really proud of it, and they always tell stories. And every time they drive by, they're like, I helped make that.
And our last question. Have you ever run into a situation with design which seemed to you as impossible?
Sorry.
Have you ever run into a situation with design which seemed to you as an impossible project to work on?
No, I would say no, but I would say that my expectations have always changed. Expectations are the things that, when sometimes as designers we have an ego and we have these clear visions of what I think, that you have to be open for your vision to be adapted based on the stories that you are hearing. And so that was always a huge lesson to be learned.
And that's all we have, so thank you.
That's it.
Do you
Sorry?
Did you guys want to say anything else?
Oh, I had a question actually.
Sure.
We like this whole time we've been really talking about community and working with a community as participatory design. I was wondering if do you think it would work in the same how different do you think it would be if it was in a setting where like in a corporation kind of situation, if you worked for a big corporation that had this project, do you think that using participatory design in that project would be very different, or would it be similar?
I think that it would be very different. I think it's up to us to begin to really push that boundary, though. I think that we need to think about new ways of making and sort of break the capitalistic boundaries that are presented to us. And I think it can be done. I think that that's my goal is anyways to bring that. And, you know, for example, our design studio last year, we worked with the homeless population, and we actually where I'm from, the homeless population is crazy. 90% is indigenous, and things like eviction notices in tent city and things like that. So we worked with the homeless population, and we got them to draw their dream home, and we had this really nice participatory design process where they were included in what they want, and they sort of knew all the answers from where they're at currently and what they need to heal and what they need to succeed. And so they have all the answers, and so we were able to take all those answers and put them together in design proposals. And the work that as students that you're doing, it's good to put that out, because we actually shared this work at an art gallery here, and a corporate entity that takes care of the housing in this area heard about it, and now they want to try this process as they begin to solve participatory design. And so now they actually bought a piece of land, and we're actually going now to take those next steps. So it does work. It can work. It's not typical. I think the places where the currency is capitalism, right? That's always hard because it's more time, but the value that you get in participatory design far outweighs currency, I believe. So the currency is always the relationships that you make.
I'm really glad that someone took up the project to do that.
Me too.
Really nice to hear.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I hope that that it continues to move in a good way. But at least there was people listening.
Yeah. Maybe Koi's had a question?
I don't have a specific question, no, but this was really great to be involved with this interview. All very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's all we have for today. Yeah. So thank you for agreeing to take part in the interview.
It's always my pleasure, and maybe I'll see you one day in architecture.